For a long time, a man was plagued by a severe itch in his nose that no treatment or remedy could alleviate. He dismissed it as a persistent nuisance until doctors determined the shocking cause, leaving everyone astounded. "Hello," Greg spoke with a calm yet curious voice. There was a brief silence on the other line before a hesitant voice finally answered, "Is this Gregory Turner?" confirming his identity. Greg's expression became puzzled. "Yes, speaking. May I know who this is?" After another moment of silence, the caller spoke more confidently, albeit cautiously. "It might seem odd, but this is Dr. Patel from Mount Si. We need to discuss your case in person. Could you visit our clinic as soon as possible? We've looked over your scans and there's something critical we need to address." Greg's heart raced as he sat up, tightening his grip on the phone. "Is something wrong?" he inquired, attempting to maintain a steady voice. "I'd rather discuss the details face-to-face," Dr. Patel insisted, stressing the need for haste. Hanging up after scheduling the visit, Greg felt a surge of anxiety. The urgent tone in Dr. Patel's voice now filled him with dread. What had they discovered? While he had been seeking answers, the sudden seriousness had him bracing for something he might not be ready to face. He recalled the strange symptom that had initially driven him to seek medical help, a deep, persistent itch in his right nostril, as if something were perpetually stuck there. Initially, it was just a slight bother, but it had gradually become harder to ignore. As time passed, the itching only intensified, erupting randomly with sharp, infuriating bursts that led him to incessantly scratch his nose until it became red and sore. No over-the-counter solutions provided any relief. He had tried everything from nasal sprays and allergy tablets to unconventional remedies like steam baths and saltwater flushes, all to no avail. His friends would tease him, nicknaming him the nose guy due to his constant nose rubbing and sniffling. However, for Greg, it was no laughing matter. The itch dominated his thoughts, disrupting both his sleep and concentration. He spent countless nights browsing online forums, delving into discussions about obscure nasal conditions, searching for any hint that could lead to a diagnosis. Each forum thread he followed only pulled him further into a whirlwind of self-diagnosis, ranging from trivial sinus problems to more alarming health issues. One evening, after a taxing day at work, Greg tried to unwind in his living room. He had just cozied up on the sofa with some takeout when a severe bout of itching struck. It was more intense than before, feeling as if something were physically scraping the inside of his nostril. Dropping his fork, he instinctively reached for his nose, rubbing it desperately to alleviate the irritation. However, the relentless itch persisted, driving him to frustration. He went to the bathroom mirror, tilted his head back, and used his phone's flashlight to inspect his nostril, hoping to spot some foreign object. Yet, all he saw was the familiar sight of swollen, reddened tissue that had plagued him for years. He attempted yet another saline rinse, a procedure he had performed numerous times, but as he leaned over the sink and flushed his nostrils, the itching intensified, now coupled with a slight stinging sensation. Clutching the sink's edge, he gazed at his reflection, his nose runny and his patience worn thin. That night, Greg found little to no sleep. Every time he started to fall asleep, a sharp sensation would abruptly wake him. By the break of dawn, he had decided he could endure it no longer. He was desperate for answers. He grabbed his phone, searched for local specialists, and secured the earliest appointment available at Mount Si. He was determined to put an end to his suffering. On the morning of his appointment, Mount Si was bustling with activity. The clinic was crowded with patients either engrossed in old magazines or absorbed in their phones. As Greg checked in, the receptionist welcomed him with a friendly smile, though his discomfort made it difficult for him to smile back. As he sat in the waiting room, feelings of embarrassment and hope mingled within him. He wondered if he was overreacting or if his condition was a trivial one that he had exaggerated. When his name was called, Greg walked behind the nurse to an examination room and perched nervously on the edge of the table, fidgeting with his fingers. Shortly after, a tall figure in a white coat entered, greeting him with a handshake and a reassuring smile. "Good morning, Mr. Turner. I'm Dr. Patel. I'll be reviewing your situation today." Greg shook his hand, grateful for Dr. Patel's friendly and reassuring presence. "Thank you for seeing me," he responded. Dr. Patel sat down, browsed through Greg's medical file, and looked up with a serious gaze. "It appears you've been experiencing this issue for some time," he observed. "It also seems you've consulted several doctors before," Greg confirmed with a nod, his voice tinged with exasperation. "Yes. They usually attribute it to allergies or sinus problems, prescribing sprays or antihistamines, but none of it helps. I keep returning because it's more than just an itch. It feels like there's something deeper at play." Dr. Patel's expression turned contemplative. "I see how this could be frustrating. Let's begin anew and examine this thoroughly. Sometimes, the answers lie where we least anticipate." Greg leaned back, ready to start the examination. As Dr. Patel conducted a meticulous examination of Greg's nose, his approach was noticeably more systematic and detailed compared to previous physicians. "You do have a deviated septum and some calcified spurs," Dr. Patel observed, adjusting the light with his gloved hand for a clearer view. "However, these issues don't seem sufficient to cause the level of discomfort you're experiencing." Greg exhaled in frustration. "That's the usual outcome. They find nothing significant. And I'm left without answers." Dr. Patel paused, his expression contemplative. "Sometimes conventional methods don't uncover everything. I suggest we perform a rhinoscopy. It's slightly more invasive, but it will give us a better look inside your nasal passages." Greg hesitated briefly before agreeing, motivated by the prospect of a resolution. The procedure was slightly painful, causing Greg's eyes to tear up as the camera delved deeper. Dr. Patel's focus intensified as he studied the monitor, his curiosity morphing into a sharp concentration. "What do you see?" Greg asked anxiously. Dr. Patel, absorbed in adjusting the scope and scrutinizing the screen, took a moment before withdrawing the camera and facing Greg with a grave tone. "There's something atypical that I've not encountered before. We need to conduct a CT scan to verify, but it could potentially explain your symptoms." Greg felt a surge of both anxiety and hope. "Atypical? How so?" Dr. Patel remained cautious. "It's premature to specify, but we shouldn't overlook it. Let's proceed with the imaging, and then we'll have more clarity." With a mix of fear and anticipation, Greg made his way to the imaging department. This experience felt uniquely unsettling, as if he were on the brink of discovering the root of his prolonged suffering. Only a few days following his medical scan, the much-anticipated call arrived. The sense of urgency in the doctor's tone still echoed in his mind as he snatched his keys and made his way to the clinic. It was time to uncover the findings. The drive to Mount Si seemed unusually lengthy, with every red light amplifying his eagerness. Parking in haste, Greg entered the clinic, his heartbeat accelerating with each step towards the reception desk. The receptionist offered a nod of recognition. "Dr. Patel will be with you shortly," she indicated, guiding him to a familiar examination room. Sitting down, Greg nervously tapped his knee, his thoughts swirling with dire possibilities. Time dragged on until Dr. Patel finally entered, a folder in hand, his demeanor composed yet marked by a distinct solemnity. "Thank you for arriving promptly, Mr. Turner," Dr. Patel began as he seated himself opposite Greg, opening the folder to reveal several scan images. "I must tell you, what we've encountered is uncommon, but it is treatable." Greg leaned in, his anxiety palpable. "What is it? What did you find?" Dr. Patel placed one of the scans on the table, pointing to a small, unusual object in Greg's nasal passage. "You have an ectopic tooth," he explained. Greg stared at the scan, the reality of the situation slowly dawning on him. "A what? An ectopic tooth?" Dr. Patel explained that Greg had a rare condition in which a tooth had formed outside the typical dental region, specifically in his nasal cavity, which was likely the source of the irritation and discomfort he had endured for years. As Greg absorbed the news, he was bewildered by the thought of having a tooth in his nose. Dr. Patel affirmed, "It might sound odd, but it's not as unusual as you'd think, and it perfectly accounts for your symptoms." He added that the tooth could be surgically removed. Greg chuckled in disbelief, marveling, "A tooth has been causing all my troubles." Dr. Patel offered a gentle smile, remarking on the surprising nature of the human body, and promised to arrange the surgery soon. It was a simple operation, and removing the tooth should clear Greg's symptoms entirely. For the first time in a long while, Greg felt hopeful. Despite the strange nature of his diagnosis, it was still a solution, and it paved the way forward. In the days before the surgery, Greg experienced a mixture of relief and astonishment. Sharing his unusual diagnosis with a handful of friends and family, their reactions varied from laughter to amazement. "A tooth in your nose," his friend Jake said incredulously during a phone call. "That's absolutely crazy. I wish I were joking," Greg responded, massaging his temple, relieved to finally have an explanation. Jake laughed, suggesting, "You should pen a book called The Tooth That Took Over My Life. I'd definitely read it." Greg couldn't suppress a chuckle as their chat wrapped up, yet as the date for his surgery drew nearer, his laughter was replaced by a creeping sense of uncertainty. Late one night, while lounging on his sofa, the gravity of his situation hit him hard. What if complications arose? The procedure, mere tooth extraction, sounded straightforward, but wasn't there always an inherent risk with any surgical operation? In a moment of anxiety, he reached for his phone and Googled potential complications from nasal surgery, only to be bombarded with a screen full of alarming possibilities. Hastily, he shut off his phone as his heart tightened. The reassuring words of his friend Jake from their phone call earlier that evening resonated in his mind, pulling him from the brink. "You've been dealing with this for years, and you've finally found a solution." Greg, with a deep breath, he centered himself. The persistent discomfort had been too much for too long. Despite his fears, the chance to end his suffering outweighed his apprehensions. On the day of the operation, Greg walked into Mount Sinai Medical Center, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. The nurses swiftly got him ready, their poised professionalism slightly alleviating his nervousness. As he positioned himself on the surgical table, Dr. Patel approached, offering a comforting smile, ready to say goodbye to that troublemaker. The doctor inquired, his voice calm and assuring. "More than ready," responded Greg, managing a weak smile in return. The anesthesiologist positioned the mask over Greg's face, and within seconds, Greg drifted off into unconsciousness. When he regained consciousness, feeling drowsy yet alert, the first thing he became aware of was the lack of the persistent itch that had plagued him for so long. It seemed dreamlike, as if he had just awakened from a nightmare. Dr. Patel approached his bedside, a small container in hand, clad in surgical gloves. Inside rested the tiny white offender of the tooth that had caused Greg endless distress. "Here it is," the doctor announced cheerfully, "the source of all your troubles." Greg peered into the container with a blend of revulsion and intrigue. "All of this, from that little thing?" he asked incredulously. Dr. Patel affirmed, "It's amazing how such a small thing can cause so much trouble." The operation was a complete success, with no issues. "You'll notice a huge improvement right away." As days passed, Greg's recovery progressed seamlessly. He was astounded by the newfound ease of breathing through his nose, something he hadn't experienced in years. The absence of the itch felt almost shocking. He hadn't realized how much it had consumed his thoughts until it vanished. 3 weeks later, during a checkup, Dr. Patel assured him that he had healed perfectly. "You're all clear." The doctor beamed. "How does it feel to be free from the itch?" Greg responded with a smile. "Like I've reclaimed my life. I can't express my gratitude enough." That evening, Greg recounted his peculiar experience to friends over dinner, eliciting both laughter and astonishment. "You're practically a walking Ripley's, believe it or not," his friend Jake teased, lifting his glass in a toast. Greg chuckled, clinking glasses with Jake. "Here's to finally breathing easy." Later that night, after the festivities had ended and Greg was relaxing on his sofa at home, he reflected on the extraordinary journey he had undergone. As he settled back, a slight, sharp sensation briefly flickered inside his nose. It was not the intense itch that had tormented him for years, but a mild discomfort that momentarily took him by surprise. Instinctively, Greg's hand went to the bridge of his nose. A sense of unease washing over him. Was this sensation normal, or was it a sign of a complication? Just then, his phone vibrated. Dr. Patel's name appeared on the display, causing Greg's stomach to clench. A call from his doctor at such a late hour was hardly comforting. He paused briefly before picking up. "Hello," Greg managed, his voice as even as he could muster. "Mr. Turner, I apologize for the late call." Dr. Patel started, his voice both calm and earnest. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Greg's heart pounded, but he replied, "No, it's okay, doctor. Actually, I'm relieved you called. I've been experiencing a strange sensation in my nose tonight. It's not quite painful, just a little odd." "Is that to be expected?" Dr. Patel chuckled reassuringly. "Absolutely, Mr. Turner, you're still recovering, and such sensations are normal during this phase. As long as there's no intense pain, swelling, or discharge, there's no cause for concern." Relief washed over Greg. "That's relieving to hear. Thank you for clarifying, doctor." After a brief pause, Dr. Patel spoke again. "While we're on the line, I'd like to discuss something with you. Your case is exceptionally rare, and I believe it could significantly contribute to medical literature. I'm preparing a research paper and would like to include your case. Your identity would be entirely confidential, but sharing your story could aid in advancing treatment and recognition of similar conditions." Caught off guard by the request, Greg hesitated. "Do you think my experience could really help others that much?" "I do," Dr. Patel affirmed warmly. "Cases like yours are few and far between, and your insights could pave the way for earlier diagnoses in the future. It's an opportunity to transform a challenging experience into something truly beneficial." Reflecting on the countless years of anguish, the sleepless nights, and the relentless quest for answers, Greg felt a surge of satisfaction at the thought that his struggles could potentially spare someone else from similar hardships. "You have my permission, Doc. If it helps even one person, it's all worthwhile," he declared, a smile spreading across his face. "Thank you, Mr. Turner," responded Dr. Patel, his voice laden with appreciation. "And remember, if you have any concerns during your recovery, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here to assist you." As their conversation concluded, Greg placed the phone down and reclined on the couch, gently touching the bridge of his nose. The discomfort had subsided, and with it, his anxieties had dissipated. He smiled, reflecting on the remarkable progress he had made. For the first time in a long while, Greg felt genuinely serene. What was once an enigmatic dilemma had transformed into merely an odd episode of his life, a tale to share and a testament to the notion that even the most perplexing issues can find resolutions. What an extraordinary odyssey. After watching the story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.